You are listening to Here Before, Here Now, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Hey guys, Colton here with another edition of Here Before, Here Now. Last conversation I had was with Jordan Bennett Begay. She is the managing editor of Indian Country Today, ICT, and also the vice president of the Indigenous Journalists Association. So that conference, by the time this airs, has already wrapped up. It was in Albuquerque this week where I'm currently recording. Too bad I missed it. I think next year, though, they said that it was going to be in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm definitely going to make it a mission of mine professionally next year to go check it out because it's such a great organization to help further these stories that are impacting Indian country. And over the summer, I was actually lucky enough to serve as a mentor to a Indigenous journalist who was a part of the Indigenous Journalists Association fellowship program. She did this amazing movie, a student film, while she was at Dartmouth, and it was selected to screen at Sundance. So I have asked her to come on my podcast. She said yes, so hopefully we'll get that done in the near future. And she told me that she's actually going to become a lawyer. So she also reached out to me this week and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm being sworn into the school that I'm going to go to. So very interesting. She is from the Louisiana area, so I can't wait to bring you her story. But I digress. Today, we're talking to the OG. Natalie Benally, she's standing by. She was the first person that I ever interviewed on my first podcast about natives in native media representation. And she was also one of the first podcast interviews that I did with this Here Before, Here Now. So Natalie, thank you so much. Third time to be on my show. Thank you so much for giving me your time.
Of course. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's kind of insane to think of how much has happened over I would say a short amount of time, but also like it's been a minute. So
Yeah, I think I interviewed you maybe almost 2 years ago for this podcast because this is like the 35th episode, and I think that it's been quite some time. But like you said, you've been busy.
Indeed, yes, a lot has transpired over that time. I can just again only be blessed enough to be able to have the opportunities that I've been getting lately, and yeah, just so much good stuff happening too. So that's always
Yeah.
that's always a plus.
So for some people who might be listening, this is the first time they've listened. Like, who the heck is Natalie Benally? She's an actor, director, performer, dancer. You were the Navajo voice actress for Finding Dory. You've appeared in several film and television shows in the last years. You serve as art director for Fry Bread, Face and Me, and you were on a Fox show called The Accused. So you have like a whole list on your resume. If we were to look up your IMDb, you'd probably be like, whoa, she's done all this stuff.
Yeah, and granted, a lot within a short amount of time, I would say. Yes, again, I'm very fortunate to. I didn't really start pursuing film and TV, or at least anything within the entertainment industry. I want to say around the first time you had interviewed me, which was just right out of like, kind of like mid 2020, going to 2021. That's kind of when I really like kind of dove in, like headfirst into everything film and TV. And so, granted, it's only been about 5 years since I've been full time doing this work and that in those mediums. Yeah, kind of impressive to say the least. It usually takes a minute for some people to, really kind of establish their resumes and experience when you're just starting out. So again, I'm very, very fortunate and very blessed to be where I'm at right now, considering that I've only been, pursuing film and TV for this short amount of time.
That is so cool. When I was in Albuquerque, I was able to do a few TV shows and movies too. As like a reporter, like they would be speaking roles, which would be awesome. And so like people today, sometimes they'll get messages like, hey, were you in this movie? I'm like, oh yeah, that was me. And I don't remember what any of them the projects were called, but it's cool. They'll send little screenshots of me with a microphone or something like that. And I miss those opportunities because they were like all over in Albuquerque, and that's where you're based right now.
Yes, I'm currently based in Albuquerque at the moment.
So you were in Santa Fe before, but you were talking about the driving, going back and forth. Did you ever take the rail runner up there to Santa Fe and come back down?
I've only taken the rail runner once, and it
Uh-huh.
was I was coming back from Toronto actually. I was coming back from the Imaginative Film Festival earlier this summer in June, and I ended up having one of those, fantastic airplane journeys of having to find a way back to New Mexico after all the flights got canceled at
Oh
the Dallas
no.
airport. So yeah, so I ended up having to fly to Santa Fe because that was the only flight I could get like the next day.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
and then I had to end up taking the real runner back from Santa Fe into Albuquerque because yeah, it was, I mean, flying nowadays, you either have a really great like get there smoothly, nothing happens, or you have those adventures where you're like, well, looks like I'm sleeping in the Dallas airport until
Oh
tomorrow
man.
morning.
Oh, I hate travel days. My wife and I, we recently went to San Francisco and we were out there for a show. And so the morning of our flights, our flight was like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we wanted to like do a few last minute touristy things. So we went to Fisherman's Wharf. We
Mhm.
went to grab some sourdough with like clam chowder. And then we were looking at our watch, like, oh man, we should probably get to the airport now. So we got a Waymo, our first time in a Waymo, those self driving cars. Took us from Fisherman's Wharf back to our hotel. And Ubers are everywhere. Like you just request one, one's there within like 30 seconds. And
Mhm.
just like the tech age there, I guess, is just so advanced. And so we got to the airport. Literally, we were looking at the clock and we're like, okay, if we get to the airport in 12 minutes, we'll be able to make our flight. And by the skin of our teeth, Natalie, we just got there before they were supposed to start boarding. And then it was delayed by like an hour.
I hate that. Oh
I
my God.
know.
Yeah. I
Oh
know.
man.
It's like I've always like approached traveling nowadays, and I've been
Yeah.
traveling a lot. Like I've definitely traveling has become a huge norm of just my life in general, more so than I feel like it ever has before. But yeah, I've always just made it an acceptance of like sometimes it's gonna go great and sometimes it's not. So we'll see what happens this time. So
Yeah. Oh man, you should have seen us like back and forth leading up to getting to the airport because you're like stressed like I can't believe you
yeah,
had
yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
the toast because we went to one of those sourdough places and I got like the clam chowder bowl and this thing goes out like a mile a minute. So mine was ready and she wanted toast and that took a while and I'm like it's because you got toast. It took so long for us to get our food and yeah, no, I think traveling without kids was a lot easier than it is with. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that you're right. You just have to let it go and just kind of live in the moment and, whatever's supposed to be will be when you're traveling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, oh my gosh, I know this is off topic, but then the thing that we bought for our son, we went to the Nintendo store in San Francisco, one of the little toys for a game he likes, and I left it on the plane. So it was like, all that again. I
Oh
know. We got it back. We got it back, thankfully, but still, it was just traveling is, God, can be so annoying, you know?
no. I
Yeah.
agree. Like it's fun, but there's definitely moments where I'm like, "Oh my God." I'm
Yeah.
like so done with this.
Tests marriages, can test
Mhm. Your
relationships.
sleep schedule, like
Yeah.
everything. It's yeah, again, but also I'm very fortunate to have had a chance to travel a lot this year, especially just because like, I've had a chance to really indulge in the film festivals because of just, being able to, you know, be there because my films got accepted in some or something like that. So that was really great.
So let's talk about those films. I know a couple of them, I was able to view, which one of them Mother's Day, and tell me about that short film because I just watched it this morning and I had seen you post about it for quite some time now, and it seems like it's just starting to really gain traction. What is it about?
Yeah, so Mother's Day is the story about a single parent who's trying to navigate and balance the responsibilities of, raising a child and also finding time for love and romance and dating. It's very much like based off of my own personal experience of being a single parent now for almost like 12 plus years of raising my daughter on my own with the help of like friends and family. And so it really just kind of, depicts a very transparent and raw, um, you know, I guess, lens into what it's like to, try to date and try to like have time for romance and love and also, again, be a parent on top of that. And then so the journey of Ashley, who's the character in the story, is about like not only is she like, looking for love, but then she realizes, that what is the most important to her is actually right there with her, which is, the relationship she has with her daughter.
Yeah, I mean, it looks when I was watching it, it's like so vulnerable. And to tell me that you are drawing from your own experience with that, how is it like putting yourself out like that? I mean, obviously it makes for more engaging content. But like you're putting your soul, your personal life possibly on display. What's it like being that transparent?
It was definitely terrifying. So this was one of the first pieces that I actually wrote as a writer. Since then, have been very lucky to have written and directed some more work since this one was complete. And so, but yeah, but it was definitely very scary. I definitely was very much like, oh, like I don't know if I'm gonna be comfortable enough to really kind of go there with this story, right? But the more and more that I kind of reflected on it, and the more and more that I, hear feedback from audience members who have watched the film so far, the more that I find that that important piece of it being so vulnerable and so raw and fragile is actually its main strength, and I think sometimes when we are putting ourselves out there, you don't quite understand how important that is for people because then you end up finding out how many people relate to it. I mean, I've had, parents who are either fathers or mothers or aunties or uncles or grandmas and grandpas who are, raising children. I think anyone who is raising a child can relate to this story. So I think that and all was like, the main goal was to kind of showcase this real like again, this realness of this experience. But yeah, but it's not to say that, I definitely had times where I was like, when we were gonna film it, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do.
Oh yeah, no, it's really like, oh, we're taking a look, at this character and what she's going with, and the challenges of being a single mom, and also, as you had mentioned, wanting to explore a love life. I mean, that if I were to see my mom do something like that, I'd be like, Mom.
Yeah, no, which is so funny because like so my daughter acted as in the film as well, right? And
Okay, yeah.
so I originally so this film Mother's Day was actually again it was one of the first films that I wrote, but also it was when I first wrote it, it was back in 2020. It was one of the recipients of the Senator John Pinto Native Filmmakers Award grant, which you had highlighted, I believe, like in one of the very first interviews that we did. And so, I had written the piece, and it was very different. It was very much like, I feel like that version, who I was at that time in 2020, was very different, was a very different human being, very different Natalie. And the blessing of like, so this is one of those films that like just got plagued with delays, like delay upon delay upon delay. When we were going to film it in 2020, COVID happened, everything shut down. Nobody was filming. It was one of those things where it was just like we just didn't know like how much of filming we could do. So then we ended up making the decision to postpone it until the next year, hopefully when things were starting to open back up, right?
Hmm.
And then when I was going to film it again the next year, I ended up booking Dark Winds. And so then I was like, well, there goes
Yeah.
my fall schedule, right? And so then we were like, okay, I guess we're just going to have to wait. And then when season one wrapped up of Dark Winds, we were going to film again in the winter of that year in 2021. And then I ended up tearing my Achilles in my right foot. So then that delayed us even more.
Wow.
And then I ended up having a year long just difficult recovery process from that injury because I ended up having three surgeries on my foot, all within the span of a year. It was a really difficult time for me mentally and emotionally because it was like, as I was also a dancer at the time, and so kind of losing dance in that way it was such a really intense grieving period for me. It was like I was grieving a part of myself, right? And so um, and so then I was like, okay, well, we have until 2023 to make this project happen because of the grant deadlines. And so I ended up really focusing a lot on my recovery. And then after I like had that third surgery and I kind of felt okay, we're like, okay, let's film this and get it done. And
Yeah.
so by this point, my child has grown substantially. When I first wrote the film, she was 8. We shot the film, she was 11 going on 12.
Mm.
And so I was like, you know what? I think I have to rewrite the script. I just, because of just like how much time had passed, and also I had grown a lot as a person. The first draft was very, I wouldn't say like it was rooted a lot from my traumatic experiences rather than like the sort of place I was at, where I felt like I was finally letting go a lot of like that relationship trauma of like of that time when I spent, leaving a really intense toxic relationship. Like I felt like I was kind of letting that go, and I wasn't really in that space anymore, and I felt like, okay, well, this Natalie now is in a different place. Like she's looking to find love again, so let's try
Mm.
to. That's why when I approached the rewriting of it, it was like I want to focus on the challenge of what it's like to try to, find love when you're obviously in the situation where you're trying to also navigate motherhood. But also too, I wanted it to be less about like, the trauma of like a relationship that went bad. I wanted it to be about the relationship between the mother and the child, right? And so that's when I rewrote it. And I felt like all those delays, as difficult as it was, really did birth a version of the story that felt more meaningful to me, but also, again, like, has resonated to be more about like, you know, this is a real part of being in this position, but also it's a beautiful one. It's still a profound way of knowing love, right? And so, yeah. Sorry, that was a long I
No,
wanted to
no,
explain the
no. I'd
journey of
love
it,
to hear
yeah,
that.
because
Yeah.
it was a very different story when I first wrote it to what we ended up filming, and putting out there. And so, yeah, so it took a long time to get there. But I feel like it was for the best.
Well, I'd love to hear the backstory behind that evolution and the writing process. What it reminded me of, I don't know if you saw this recently, but there was a woman who, like on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, like she spent a whole entire day with a little clicker, and every single time her kid said "mom," she clicked. And throughout the entire day, I think she racked up hundreds of moms. And then your daughter in this film is like, "Mom, mom, mom," and it's like, or it takes me back home to my own situation. Obviously I have 2 kids, and me and my wife are in the same household. We're both present at the exact same time, yet both of my kids always say, "Mom, mom, mom." I'm like, okay, I'm here too, guys, you know.
Yeah, it's so funny because that wasn't in that part of the film wasn't supposed to be funny, but
Uh-huh.
it gets the most laughs from people because, like you said, you're just like, oh yeah, I know that feeling.
I don't know, and I see it too, and it's like, oh my gosh, mom, mom. My daughter's almost 2, not quite 2 yet, and she literally just perfected the cadence of her older brother and said, "Mom." I'm like, oh my gosh. She barely says dad, but she can go for mom and mama really quickly. So I don't know. You guys have like what's that like? I mean, having that relationship with your daughter's strong enough to have her be in the film.
Yeah, no, she at first was like very, very like, I don't want to do this. Like again, because she was already, in puberty. She was in like preteen, like
She's
I don't
like,
like
"Mom, why did you
anything.
say that?"
Yeah, I know, exactly. She would be like, oh my God, mom, like, and I was like, I'm sorry, kid, like
Yeah.
I don't have time to cast another kid in this role, like, so we're just gonna have to roll with it. So she absolutely did not like the process of it. I think it was just because filmmaking takes such a long time, right? It's like it takes a lot to film within a day, and we've shot this in 2 days. And so, yes, it was a lot to ask a preteen to be like, sorry, kid, we're going to be filming this for like 8 to 10 hours today, right? And so yeah, so that was like, again, a struggle, but I think it was also really amazing because then she also kind of saw how like what it's like for me as someone who does work as an actor in film and TV, right? She's like, I don't know how you do that. Like you just kind of like spend all day like waiting around sometimes just until you're needed on camera. I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of just waiting sometimes, and you're kind of like, okay, like when are we going to go on? When am I going to be on camera?
Hmm.
And so she kind of got a taste of what it's like for me, and how, like, as much as it might seem as like, oh, it's glamorous and it's fun, which it is, but it's also a lot of time, and it's a lot of hard work on top of that. So it was kind of like this really cool way of her to kind of get an understanding of what mom's life is like when she's doing this kind of work. And yeah, and so since then, of course, like, she's a teenager now. She's going to be turning 14, and it's awesome. I mean, I love, a lot of people were always like trying to fear monger me of like, oh, just wait till she's a teenager. And I'm like, I have no fears at all, because like
Yeah.
the way that our relationship, and I feel like the film was like a really amazing sort of stepping stone for us, is, it did take me a long time to realize, like, love exists in so many other places besides just romantic relationships, right? I think when Ashley is like, sort of romanticizing this idea of a relationship, right, with this guy that maybe she doesn't quite know much about yet, or maybe it's like super early on. You don't really kind of know like how long she's known this guy that she's like, with, right? And so I think it, speaks to this idea of like, again, that, she romanticizes this love that she's only maybe had a little bit of sense of, or maybe it's like the second or third date they're on, whatever. But in the end, it's then, she realizes, oh wait, I have great love, and it's here with my kiddo. And so, yeah, I feel like that choice has, I mean, the choice that a lot of, like, want to say, particularly the women who are mothers who have come up to me and talked to me after they've seen the film have always been like, I just love that you kind of showed that it's still a really hard choice sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's like, again, as mothers, we're also human beings, right? Like, we also have desires and wants and passions. We want to be loved on. I think another part of this film that was so scary for me was, there is a scene in this movie of intimacy, right? Like, there's an intimate scene that happens between Ashley and the guy she's dating. And it's, a lot of people have been like, wow, it's actually kind of nice to see Native bodies not like just in pain and trauma. Like, it was nice to see like a love scene happen in a way. And I was like, yeah, because that's literally, as human beings, as women, we like that too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That was also a challenge I wanted to put out there, was to showcase that as well. And of course, it was terrifying. Thankfully, Justin Geem, who plays my love interest in the film, we've been dance partners forever. And so we had a sense of like way of working with each other that, we could get through that without it feeling like, I still was like super like, this
Comfortability.
is so
Yeah. Yeah.
weird. Yeah, I was like, this is so weird, because I'm like, you're like my little brother, and this is so awkward.
Oh,
But like,
that's
we were
funny.
like, once we were able to approach it as like dance, it
Yeah.
immediately clicked. But yeah, but it was like the women would just be like, yeah, they were like, I just loved that, even though, like, she ultimately makes a decision that, seems fitting, it also wasn't like the easiest,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's, as parents, I feel like sometimes we're always, we get seen as like, oh, we always make these choices, not just because it's our duty as parents, but also it's, we give up a lot sometimes, right? We do have sacrifices that we give to be able to be there for our children. Whether, whether or not we're, again, in relationships, or we're doing it on our own, like, and so I think that, to me, has been the greatest like piece of feedback I've gotten, is
Yeah.
that it shows you that it's a hard choice, but at the end of the day, I'd make that choice over and over again.
Right. Wow. Well, to kind of do a 180 on this conversation, obviously there was, a much more serious tone with Mother's Day. The other film that I saw that you had also directed this time had more of an upbeat flair to it, centered around dancing. Would you talk to us about that film?
Yeah, so the film Atzil in Navajo means to have strength, right? And so Atzil is actually the second film of a dance series that I curate called Ajish. Ajish is to dance with passion and tenacity. And so my dream with this dance series is I hope to curate at least like 10 films, 10
Oh,
short
wow.
films to basically showcase one that, native dancers come in all different styles, all different shapes and sizes, different backgrounds and things like that. But also because, like, again, I wanted to find a way to bring this love of dance that I have already into this medium of film that I also love, right? And so the first film I did was a film called Sangwa. So that was with a native ballerina named Tom Povey Martinez. That was back in 2021. I shot and directed that. And so this was the second film. And what I really wanted was when I got funding to make this film happen, I needed someone who was going to be a complete 360 from
Mm.
Tom Povey, right? I was like, I need this person to be unique in their voice and their vibe and their movement. And so thankfully, that was when around the time when native TikTok started taking off, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I ended up stumbling across a native TikToker. She's Navajo from Peru, Nicole Sam. And I remember when I first saw her, I was like, dang, I was like, this girl can dance. I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
I was
I'm like,
dancing. I was like moving my shoulders and watching you guys doing your thing
yeah,
in that
yeah,
movie. I'm like, this
yeah.
is
And
good.
so, yeah, and so when I got the funding to do the film, I was like, I feel like she would be the perfect second installment of this series to kind of showcase again my goal of like, look at how many different native dancers are in all these communities, right? And so I reached out to her and I was like, "Hey, like, I'm gonna be doing a film, a dance film, and I was like, I'm wondering if you would love to be involved and be the subject, the lead actor and lead dancer." She's like, "Okay." Well, she's like, "I've never done that before," and I was like,
Oh
"It's fine.
wow.
Like, this is what the series
Is
is
this
for."
real?
Yeah, yeah. And so then what I do normally when I approach these films is I work with the dancer like full on like full collaboration. So
Mm.
we met and we brainstormed ideas and she would tell me like, oh, I want I'd ask her like, if this film were to be like your calling card to the world, what would it look like? What would it say? And she was like, well, she's like, I wanna express joy and I want to express positivity. She was like, I kind of want like something that feels like, like when you put on a feel good song in the morning and it just kind of gets you going and you feel, and I'm like, yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. She's like, so I want something like that. And I was like, okay, like, what kind of visuals inspire you? Like what influences you, like in terms of when you see it in your mind and playing it in your mind? And so she was like, I really love K-pop and I really love Glee. She's
Mm.
like, I like those moments where, in Glee, they kind of break off into random moments of song and dance. And it kind of feels like not
Yeah.
real, but it kind of is. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And so then, of course, me also being a K-pop stan, I was like, okay. I was like, if we're going to do something in the lines of K-pop Glee, feel good, positive, good vibes, I was like, I need backup dancers.
Yeah.
And so, because of my connections with the New Mexico dance community, I knew already who I was going to reach out to for backup dancers, and it was the Zia Queens, which is the all-female breaking crew in New Mexico, the only one right now, right in New Mexico. And so, I was like, okay, cool. So I hit them up and I was like, hey, like I have this project. I'm doing this with this amazing dancer. She, I think would, benefit from having, you all there to support, but also to be the backup dancers in this world that we're building with her. And they were like, oh my God, yeah, like we would love to. And so then we ended up, rehearsing. So all the choreography you see in there was created in collaboration with Nicole and with the Zia Queens. So my job really, my goal always when I'm doing these films is to just be a vessel and to guide. And
Oh,
so
okay.
I would just be there to kind of see, okay, this choreography that they're making,
Hmm.
how can I visually capture that? And then if I'd be like, okay, guys, that move kind of just doesn't come off too strong. What if we do it like this? And so then it was very like, again, like I try to really do operate from a collaborative standpoint. And so like my job as like someone who's capturing the vision is to also provide that feedback. And so we would change things based off of like, oh, the camera needs to be here or the camera might not move in that way. So let's see how we adjust it. So we figured all that out and then we filmed it about a month later in Albuquerque. So we brought everyone to Albuquerque. We were able to film in an empty-ish office building with collaboration with the UNM Film Department. And so we had this building to ourselves for about 2 days. But of course people would come in here and there, but like it was great because we just had this big space to work in. And so the story really was like informed by Nicole's background. She's like the only at the time she was the only female tech worker at her job. So she was going to office buildings, fixing Xerox machines, printer machines, and stuff like that. And so we were like, oh, okay. I was like, okay. So we took this idea of her being this like, 9 to 5 mundane worker.
Yeah.
And then we're like, let's do a moment where she like daydreams and then she like the whole office building becomes alive with dance and song,
Yeah.
right? And so yeah, so that was kind of like the journey of building that story together. And then once we were able to, edit it and I started submitting it to film festivals, like it exploded.
Oh,
Like the
that is
fact
so
that
cool.
yeah, I mean, the fact that it's been so received in the way it is just really, I think the emphasis on the fact that it celebrates so much Indigenous joy unapologetically. It's just us being happy, right? And enjoying our time. That has really resonated a lot with people. And again, people have responded to it. I mean, it was on AMC Plus for a month, like crazy.
Right. Yes, that's amazing. So that brings me to my next question. Where can people see your work? I mean, I know that they're like in festivals, so you can't really put things out like online, but is there an opportunity where people can kind of check out what you do?
Yeah, so right now, Adil is kind of coming towards the end of its film festival run. There is a few more festivals that we're waiting to hear back on for that one, but once that's done, we'll be putting that out for people to be able to see publicly online. And also, I am in talks right now of it potentially, excuse me, being available on another streaming service. I can't say too much on what that is yet,
Okay.
but I'm ended up getting another person or not another streaming service who was interested in potentially having it available on their platform. So we'll see what happens with that. But it will be online eventually. Mother's Day will probably not be publicly available until after this year because it's still in film festival circuit right now. And we just got accepted into another one, the Atlanta Women's Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it's gradually picking up steam. And yeah, and so people can check out our other films online. We have a YouTube channel that you can see them. We have an Instagram that we put stuff on there. So yeah, so eventually all these films that I'm talking about will be available online publicly eventually, right after they get done with their film festival circuit life. Yeah, it's just if you're submitting to festivals, you can't have them online publicly or else you
Right,
get really
right.
disqualified. So yeah.
So it seems like you mentioned, you've been able to do a whole bunch of work in just a short amount of time. When you decided to make this your full-time job, career, chasing after your dreams, like, did you imagine that, 5 years later that this is where you would be? I mean, you've got these projects under your belt, you've got a role on, AMC's Dark Winds, like you've done so much. Like, is it ever like, oh my gosh, this is kind of surreal?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think people quite understand how long it takes to really kind of build up your work within the entertainment industry. A lot of times people assume like, oh, well, you start out and you immediately start getting things left and right, right? That is not how it works. Usually it takes people years, and it's still taking me some time. Like I'm still like in terms of my place in the industry right now, I'm still fresh to the game. You know what I mean? I'm just 5 years in as a full-time person, right? And um, so yeah, so it is surreal to kind of like think about like when I decided to really jump into this, when I was still working full-time in Santa Fe and I had that steady full-time job, I was like, dang it, like if I do this, like I lose the security of my financial position, right? I'm gambling with a lot of things that might work or might not work out. And inevitably, I can't talk right now. Um,
That's me every
you know,
day. It's
yeah,
okay.
I'm like inevitably, there you go. I can't even say that word. What the heck? Okay, but eventually I knew that it was either I try or I don't. And
Mhm.
I knew that I would have the biggest feeling of regret if I didn't try. And
Right.
so when I took that leap, it was scary. But I'm so glad I did because like again, like I can't even tell you like how crazy it is to like I mean the fact that I've like gotten to work with some like people that I grew up with on TV and
Yeah.
in movies. Like I have literally sat in the rooms with them, and I'm like, oh my God, like Gina Davis, Alfred Molina, Bill Pullman. Like literally, I was like, I cannot believe I'm here right now. You know
That is
what I
crazy. No,
mean?
that's
And
crazy. That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's what I'm saying. Like I was just like, I can't, like this is my life. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
insane.
surreal.
But again, but it's only just begun. Like I feel like my mission wasn't just to kind of like, oh, I want to make movies and I want to act and things like that. And like that's great, but like for me it was like my mission was to really find my own voice and really how can my voice and its uniqueness and its rawness and vulnerability make a space and place for people to be able to relate to stories and films in that way. And so yeah, and I go back and forth between wow, this is real and two, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it was so worth it. I mean, I'm so glad I took that chance on myself, 5 years ago when I decided, okay, yeah, I'm gonna leave my job and I'm gonna just see what happens. Yeah, just it just lets you know as long as you have, y- as long as you know that that is what you want to do and you're literally willing to do anything, everything for it,
Hmm.
it is worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is so inspiring. It really is because, I think far too often people are, kind of have the mindset of, I like the security of things, but then they go on thinking, what if, which is why I buy a Powerball ticket every week.
Yeah, I mean, you just never know.
You
I mean,
never know.
you never know. Like again, like I never foresaw that, like, this one little opportunity that I had, when I decided to do Fried Bread Face and Me would lead me to being on a show for 4 seasons, to being able to be on like, like Netflix and AMC, and the fact that now my films are starting to show up on there now. Like you can't fathom the possibilities unless you take the chances. And so not to say that it doesn't come with failure. There's obviously times where I've been in things where like I nearly got the role but I didn't, or I
Oh
almost
man.
got that project to happen but I didn't. But again, it's I know it's only been 5 years for me and it's just the beginning. And I foresee, because of how tenacious and passionate I am about this work, I foresee that eventually it will get to a place where I'll be like, they'll be like, you'll be able to say, oh, I remember Natalie when I first met her doing this little interview.
Right. Yeah. And I can't even get in touch with her now. She's not
No, no,
responding to my
no, no. I
DMs.
will always make
I'm
time
just
for
kidding.
people. I will always make time for people that have always been like supportive of my career. So
Yeah, when you like are on the Oscars, several years or maybe in the
I
next few
mean,
years, I'll be
at
like,
this
hey, can I get you on a
point,
podcast?
I mean, again, like you got to dream,
Yeah,
and
why not?
but yeah, and I feel like it's a mixture of like dream big, but also like
Gotta do
I
the
think that's,
work.
yeah, I got to do the work, and also again like a big thing too that I've been a very big blessing that has also happened with doing this work, and also like the fact that I've built my platform this much over the last 5 years, is how much work has also been brought to the community work that I do. I
Mm,
mean, I feel like that for me is always the striving force of like, what am I doing that's going to benefit my community, right? And which is why a lot of times projects that I've been trying to make happen, if they're not involving community, I'm not interested. You know what I mean? So a lot of the times when I'm really kind of pushing forward with these things, as much as I'm like the face and like the visible part of it, it's also like as long as it brings something to my community that is meaningful and impactful, that is the most important. And so yeah, I mean, I've got some community stuff that I'm going to be working on this year, that I'm really excited that more people are being more involved. And that's again, I guess the good thing about having a visible platform is that people will then want to help and also want to be as involved in what you're doing. So yeah.
wow. All right. Great words to live by. Natalie, thank you so much for once again indulging my requests. I know that we tried to make this happen in person, but things happen. So if you're ever in the Phoenix area, make sure you come in studio. I have to like show you the setup and everything. And I remember when I first talked to you, I was just using a recorder on a computer. So kind of like you, like just like doing the hustle and kind of just pushing yourself and making things happen. Like, look, this is a cool studio now. You know what I mean? This is so cool.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah, no,
So
I mean, again, like you never know unless you try, right?
yeah,
So
exactly. All right. Yeah, Natalie, thank you so much.
you too, get in Chicago.
All right. That's going to do it for this episode of Here Before, Here Now. Make sure you rate, like, and subscribe to the podcast. If you have any guest ideas, please send them my way. Colton.shown@azfamily.com. Till next time.